Welcome to the Business Women Australia podcast show, the podcast that brings together industry leaders to discuss the latest trends, insights and strategies. So sit back and relax, let's get inspired by the amazing women who are shaping the future of professional women in Australia. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
So welcome to the Business Women Australia podcast show. I'm Lyn Hawkins, the National Director of Business Women Australia. And I've got the wonderful Wendy Harper on today, and we're going to flip our show. Wendy's going to interview me today. We're going to look at how we are reimagining leadership. And I'm going to share Business Women Australia's journey with the inner development goals. And before we do that, I'm going to hand over now to Wendy, maybe just to share an acknowledgement of country and then take over the reins from here, Wendy.
Thanks, Lyn. I'm calling in from beautiful Garigal land over here on the northern beaches of New South Wales, just in the north of Sydney. It's soggy weather at the moment, but the landscape, the trees in this cooling period, it's a beautiful place to be. So very grateful to all of the First Nations people who may be listening, and to First Nations everywhere on country everywhere. Thank you for loving the country and for helping to guide us into that deep love and respect of country and culture.
Yes, thanks, Wendy. And for me, I'm on the beautiful lands of the Noongar people. I'm Manjagurrup. It's the land of the water people here. It's a very plentiful place that was really decimated actually by white guys when we arrived, and there's been a lot of truth-telling and a lot of healing, and particularly this week, Reconciliation Week. I really urge everyone to show your respect for Aboriginal people and our elders, past, present and emerging, by getting involved and hearing, listening, and being present to the stories that are being shared. There's so much to learn and so much that we can do going forward that's positive. So, yes, thanks a lot. Over to you, Wendy. Let's unpack what leadership can look like going forward with the Business Women Australia's journey with the inner development goals.
Thanks, Lyn. I'm this is a journey and an experiment really that we've been in about how might the inner development goals add to what Business Women Australia is already doing. And so being able to take a deep dive into that today is really exciting. I guess I'd just like to start with, like, when I first brought the inner development goals to you, I could see how much they resonated. And so from the deep dive conversations we've had, what was it about the IDGs and where Business Women Australia was heading that clicked for you right from the start?
Well, what I loved from the beginning was that you were very encouraging of what Business Women Australia was evolving to and moving towards. When we first started out, we were very much a community that was around success, and how we defined success was about business success and career success, climbing the corporate ladder, being profitable or making an impact. And we used to have a lot of sort of prescription type ways of doing that. Here's the steps, here's the knowledge expert, come along, bring your notebook, and just do the steps and you'll succeed. And where we've evolved over the last sort of really 5 or 6 years, I think, has been really around what it is to be a leader. And the sorts of conversations that women were bringing to the table were more around, what do I do? How can I be? And what is it that I need to do in order to get the best out of my teams, in order to be heard in the boardrooms, in order to make an impact that doesn't compromise who I am as a woman? And these conversations were changing the shape of the types of ways that we gathered together as well. So we gave up on this idea of sort of having the expert at the front of the room and having keynote speakers and all these sorts of things. We started to move more towards inner development work, which, I'm calling it that now because now I'm hearing about these inner development goals. I'm realizing that it was all about what we called leading self. in order to lead others, you need to lead self first. And this was a deep philosophy that was underpinning all our work over these last sort of 6 or 7 years, and very much shaped by the work that we were originally doing in the women's circles, the courageous conversations that were coming up without feeling that we need to fix each other, allowing women to learn to speak from very personal lived experiences and providing those spaces. And from that, these big aha moments that women were sharing with us about themselves and what they were going to be committing to do themselves going forward. So when you shared with me the inner development goals that came from the UN sustainability work and the evidence-based sort of deep work that had been done by people way more experienced and clever than I am from an academic perspective. Of course, me coming from an academic and professional environment, just love this because it gave me some real validation about where we were heading, but also lifted the lid on some other things to learn and explore in. When I started my PhD, I didn't finish it, but I did start it in self-determination theory and around this concept of psychology, the psychology of self. It was built a lot on the positive psychology movement. And my academic research really in the last 5 or 6 years has been limited around the types of topics that our leading members would bring to me. And I'd sort of have a deep dive and think, where's the latest in research? It's just the way I'm wired up. I don't think that's necessarily the right way, but it is the way I'm wired up. But when I looked into this background of the inner development goals that you've introduced to us through your role as chair on the advisory board and coming along to our retreat, it just made me so excited because it gave us a framework, it gave us some language, it gives us some validation that the journey we're going on is the one that's going to help heal the world, the one that the UN is actually looking at, saying if we look at these inner development goals and look at ourselves as humans and what our role is today, here, now, that is where it's going to make those shifts. And I think looking at history, looking at what's going on right now, look at the behaviour of individuals who are in positions of power, who are eroding all the good work of the UN. This has never been a more important time to be having these kinds of explorations and knowledge learning and knowledge development and bringing these frameworks into our organisations. So I was very excited and I said, yes, let's do this. Let's look at how we utilise all that knowledge and all that learning and help grow it too and help inform it the way that we always do, because when women get together, we are very much a co-creation community. And that's sort of, I guess that's a long-winded way of answering that question, but it certainly just resonated for all those reasons.
Yeah. And just on that, with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, it was out of that observation that we've done such a slow and poor job of achieving those in the timeframes that were set, that it led researchers around the world to get together in this open source research project about what were the inner capacities that weren't being developed, that would better enable us to achieve those outcomes. And that was really the birthplace for the inner development goals. And I also know that you've got a really brilliant analytical mind. It's when it comes to business strategies. So then how did you actually, I'm really intrigued, how did you actually go about exploring the IDG framework, and, how did it stack up against or relate to those more traditional models that you've looked at over the years? How did you approach that kind of synthesis?
Well, it's a work in progress. Let's just say that. And the first thing that I did was obviously do the research on what it is that you've brought to us. Let's read about it. What is it? You gave us some wonderful links to look at, and and talking to you along the way and bringing up the cafe conversations enabled me to bring something into the group that was a knowledge building thing, seeing how you were mapping your themes and everything against the inner development goals, all those 5 pillars that really resonated. And then what I started doing was mapping those 5 pillars and those interdevelopment goals aspects to all the things that were already in our program, and thought, where is it that we can communicate how this relates? And in doing that, then are there any gaps?
Sorry, I was just going to say, and this is the five domains of like being, thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting, as the 5 domains of the Inner Development Goals Guide.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so even looking at that in terms of how the flow of our agendas, looking at how that relates to our vision and our mission and our values, and how it relates to the work that our leading members are doing, and where that fits into progressing this deep awareness of self and the development of self along those pillars. And, from that, it was really interesting, because I sort of used it like like a pressure test in a lot of ways, and I'm still doing that. And so is our board. Our board is now starting to get what this is all about, and it fit. And what it did was it was fitting really well with this idea of the conscious communication parameters that we were building, enabling a community of practice within Business Women Australia for the practice of actually being, relating, collaborating. We'd always talked in these kind of terms, but we didn't have this validation around it. And it's actually been made everything a lot more relevant and helpful in our planning. And it's also helping us evolve this conscious leadership ecosystem that we are progressing towards. So when I said to you, we started off with this idea of being, definitions of success being all this, fairly more around what we're doing, progressing in our career, or achieving a successful, profitable business, or having the impactful for purpose environment. But it's this actually moving more in line with where women were really wanting to talk about, was not what I'm doing, but how am I being? Who am I? Who am I? This came up yesterday, even in our personal branding topic. One of the big questions that was underlying it was, well, in my personal branding and my influence, who am I, and what influence do I really want to make, and with whom do I want to do that with? And these are the sorts of questions that have come out of a lot of this sort of more gentle positioning around this deeper aspect of inner development. And I'm just excited by it, because it really does invite around the room some very, very conscious sharing. There's no fixing. There's a lot of personal exploration, even out in the room, where women are sort of navigating ideas without being judged, and being able to shift off those ideas if they're going, oh, actually, no, that's not working, not feeling like they have to have all the answers. This is what collaboration, when we look at that domain of collaboration, this is the collaboration that we're looking at, not a collaboration on doing something together that's an activity in order to achieve an outcome. So even our definitions of collaboration are starting to be more real and more authentic. So, look, I really see these IDGs being very much this valuable contribution to all organisations, just in helping understand what it is that the new style of leader needs to be. I've got this real problem with command control, and I've been feeling that there's this swing back towards command control again, and that, we're starting to see examples where the inclusion and diversity is being eroded, and I know the pendulum is swung this way. It will swing even more back. I'm ever so hopeful and optimistic that this is the case, but be ready, because the next type, as soon as that happens, we're going to need a lot of leaders that understand themselves and are working on themselves in order to be able to do the good work that needs to be done right now, and that's going to be the opportunity to do more of it going forward. So it's very human-centered. I'm even looking at, how can our website be a place, a home for conscious leadership, a home for women to come and stay if they like, and come in and move in if they want, or just visit. But a home where it's a safe place to go on a journey and explore the way that we are doing, and without worrying about making a mistake, with being able to experiment and build cubbies with us, as we say, Wendy. I love building cubbies, and we often laugh about that, because you'll build a cubby and you go, oh, actually that didn't work, let's just dismantle that and go and build one over there, and we've learned something from that one, or we've got different people around us, so we can build something bigger. I just think this is a beautiful framework that fits so perfectly with being able to have some intention and some systems and processes that then build into that.
Because we can't expect that the challenges that we're facing in the world to be solved by the same mindsets that created those issues in the first place. And for people listening, I just thought I'd take a moment just to run through just what those headings are for each one of those domains, just to kind of like orientate everyone to like where we're going to go next. So in that being domain, it's all about cultivating our inner life. The thinking domain is understanding our complex world. Relating is caring for others in the world. Collaborating is about building trust and working together. And acting is about leading and enabling change. And each one of these domains has 5 skills attached to them, so we can take deeper dives down into those. And one of the beautiful things about the IDGs that I love is that it's not we don't have to learn a new framework. It's what we're already all doing anyway, all of the time. It's just a beautiful mirror to be able to recognize the strengths we have, and also where we might be able to deepen our skills and gain more experience to put into practice to get the impact we're looking for. So, I just, but it is sometimes tricky though. And I'm wondering how you navigated it, because, having these, bringing, this deep inner work into kind of fast-paced business worlds. And we know that it's so important when we're talking about psychological safety or work-life balance or strategic thinking. This is the domain where this stuff actually lives. So what's needed to shift inside you as an architect in your organization, like to bridge these worlds? Because this is about a practice rather than a learning a framework. It's what we embody. So I'm just wondering, like, what process have you gone through in this evolution?
Yeah, definitely. I've become more patient, and I'm slowing down in terms of having to get to an outcome that I might have been pushing and designing as an architect of change myself. And especially coming from marketing communications, I've done a lot of work building a system and a framework and programs that BWA delivers. And my idea of collaborating was working with those leaders in the group, and they were knowledge experts, just positioning those. There's still a place for that. I think that's still a really important part of the visibility that we offer women who are leaders. But what I'm actually seeing is that I'm needing to shift my own thinking to let go of that being just what we're about, and actually sitting and learning, sitting back, allowing others to step forward, supporting those who are experimenting this with that. It's okay when things go off piste. It's not about you controlling what's going on in the room. It's really allowing that. I've noticed is the big shift for me is still doing the things that I need to do to keep the everything ticking over, and the bus driving. The bus needs to be maintained. It's like I'm the mechanic that's looking after this bus, but it's allowing what goes on inside the bus to be a little bit loosey-goosey. And
the party bus. It's a party bus.
And it really is a party bus. I mean, I guess more than ever before, I've had to let go of these preconceived ideas of what Business Women Australia is all about, and to really open it up to bringing these kinds of things that we were doing in the quietness of secret women's business really into the corporate and professional environments. And I have to say, look, hand out to, BDO in Western Sydney under the guidance of Monica Lee, who's a very young leader. She's a young mum. She's young compared to me. I just turned 60. She'll be laughing if she sees this. She's extraordinarily talented, but she's so courageous in bringing into technical topic areas like capital accessing or ESG, I think you ran recently, and the next one coming up is R&D tax incentives, but having not just those topics, but opening it up to a circle conversation, a trusted circle of peers sharing matters that are deep and meaningful, as well as personal and professional, in a very safe environment. Now, if organisations were able to do this in their own team meetings and the boardrooms, how much more effective would our teams be if there was really that truth that can be expressed around a board table? And we're having these kind of discussions. You've got the joy of interviewing Andrea Durant coming up in Sydney, and I loved my session with her in Melbourne. And one thing that she really highlighted was this importance of boards, and particularly listed boards, to be bringing diverse brains and experiences, cultures, backgrounds, creativity into the boardroom, because obviously, with what we know now, AI can do all the stuff, all the technical things. That's all going to be handled. So it's the strategic and the creative and the artistic, the human elements. The boardrooms are full of accountants and finance people and legal people and governance experts. And what we need is a balanced board, and enabling the voices of people that are human-centered, people bringing all these other things. That's going to bring about the innovation and the change that's needed for the world. Yeah. And, it's really exciting. And by actually, look, if I know a lot of you who are listening are on boards for purpose, as well as private business boards and public company listed boards. Please check out these IDGs. Check out what it is. I know that we've got mandates around ESG, but it's more than a mandate. It's more than a reporting and compliance piece. This is about our legacy. And when I think about what's really shifted for me, as I've got older, my legacy is I'm going to leave on this planet. How am I going to leave this planet a little bit better, and the people here a little bit more hopeful about the future? Because that really is so important for our boards to be thinking about as well.
Yeah. And that word, what really chimes for me is that key thing about innovation. Unless we can create safe spaces for people to be able to experiment and new ideas to emerge, then we're not creating the preconditions for innovation to happen. And given the stewardship and responsibility that boards have for being able to not only look after their organisations, but also the impacts that they're having generally socially and wanting to contribute into that, then do you see that, how do you see these kind of skills really helping to guide and open those go. So.
Well, with the skills around leadership, it really this is a start. If you apply these inner development goals to a role, let's say you're a manager or a leader in an organisation, you've got a titled role, and look, by all accounts, leadership is not a role. But let's just look at those people who are in titled roles that have an impact. If they were to give themselves permission to go on this journey of inner development work and to take that time to focus on self, then there will be absolutely massive shifts in the way that they provide opportunities for others to bring forward experimental ideas, innovative ideas, issues that aren't working, issues that are working, issues around the care or compassion of someone in their team that might be having something going on at home or work that needs to be protected. There'll be more openness and authenticity and care and compassion inside organisations. There'll be less burnout. There'll be less churn. There'll be greater outcomes. These skills, as you said right at the beginning, they're not hard. It's about it's about really tuning into what you know is the deepest truth of what it is to be a good human. And I have every faith that given the opportunity, when people have a look at these frameworks and go, wow, is it really this simple? And to have the right sort of support around them to go on that journey of change, it really is not a big job. And it's a fun thing. It's great, and it brings about so much wonderful energy. And where there's wonderful energy in humans, great ideas happen.
Exactly. And it's like in the work that I've been doing in stewarding the IDGs, it's been one of those things where I could just constantly see the friction, within like heavy corporate structures, and the price especially that the women are paying in those environments, and that there's shifts where, I constantly hearing these stories of like women, in senior ends of their career, just simply moving out of organizations because the culture within organizations are not keeping up with their own expectations of the kind of workplaces and environments and cultures where they can do their best work. And so the organizations are also losing that incredible resource that's been, built up. So there's been a lot of struggle to adapt, and I see it being like one of those transitions in time. And is that where you see the inner development goals being able to kind of bridge that gap?
Absolutely. And look, if you have an organizational culture that adopts the inner development goals as an important part of the framework that we offer to everyone inside an organization, I can just imagine how this will break down silos. There'll be much more cross-functional collaboration. There'll be amazing creativity that happens, and the structures of organizations become far more human-centered. And in this time of technological revolution, we're seeing the opportunity here to really reimagine organizations to work as more organic, adaptable ecosystems. And that's why I'm using this word ecosystem. My husband does get upset when I use ecosystem in a corporate environment ways, because he comes from an environmental science background. But I've always felt innately that I've all my work through my corporate career has always been about trying to break down silos and trying to get people to work cross-functionally and trying to build innovation through process thinking. I jumped onto the total quality management movement way back in the 90s. You might remember that. And it did shape a lot of my thinking, and I was doing a lot of work around the sort of idea of Kaizen, small process improvements. But what I love about this framework with the IDGs is it's putting the human, the individual, and the work of an individual at the center. Now, if everyone's doing that, and what it means is that I therefore my relatedness with each other is better. My understanding of my own limitations and my propensity to speak over others or whatever it might be is stopping something from happening. My greater awareness, my ability to be a bit more still, to sit back if I might normally be the one that speaks first. A propensity, if I sit back, to be able to then feel that there's another way of sharing my voice, but so that my voice is not lost. All these inner development things give permission to everyone to be themselves, but also to actually acknowledge that there are other different people around the room have just as much, if not more, to contribute to this collective knowledge, to this collective pathway moving forward. And look, that's exciting. And, it just paints a picture of a dynamic organization, of a dynamic team. And when I mean dynamic, I mean it's constantly changing, just like we are changing as humans. If we look back at that evolution of little Lynny Walster back in Three Springs in the Midwest, listening to the radio, thinking there's a whole world out there, to little Lyn Hawkins now, who's like looking at the world going, wow, I'm just one little tiny piece of this massive puzzle, and what we can do is create a ripple effect with each other by really knowing self and knowing each other. And knowing ourselves first enables us to then really fully know and invite others to be themselves in our presence.
So for the founders and CEOs listening, like who know their culture needs to become like more human-centered, but they may not be sure where to begin, what's your absolute best piece of advice as to where they should be starting?
Well, the first thing I would say is reach out to Wendy. I mean, without a doubt, Wendy's an open door. We know this is open source. It's available there. Do your research, have a look at it. But it's like anything. Even work on self can only be done to that next level when done with others. You know, I've learned this is that I can go away and have a whole lot of knowledge in my head and a whole lot of knowledge, you know, that I can research and I can pull together and I can create frameworks and I do all this stuff. But unless I'm actually then bringing it to people who are already maybe a bit more advanced in this than I am, and those as well, bringing those along who are even, you know, less experienced in it than I am, together, that's where the greater value of knowing what to do is next, because each organisation is unique. There's not a plug and play approach that can happen. And what I actually love about your approach in stewarding this, and I love the word you use as a steward, is that you'll walk with people, you'll come in, you'll meet them where they're at, and then from there explore where first to start. And my absolute advice is, if you're in a leadership role, ideally this is where you need to start. If you're actually someone listening and you're not in one of those C-suite roles, but you're in a manager, that is also the right place to start, because it can grow from wherever. Because it's so good, it will sprout seeds and people will start saying, what is it about your team that works so well? And I'm getting this from BWA. People come in. Yesterday they were saying they just love to come into our monthly meetings because they want to get their BWA fill. Like, what is that? You know, someone said that, you know, that they needed to come, and, you know, they just feel drawn because, not because of what they're going to learn, but because of how they feel when they leave, and the energy that they get from being around a group of people who see them and hear them. Now, take that into an organisation and think about your own team. Imagine if the people that you're managing are saying that about you as their leader, that, wow, I'm heard, I'm seen in this team. My ideas, sometimes we experiment with my ideas. I can lead on things. I can make an impact here. And they're the sorts of teams that are going to be embracing the best and doing the things and lifting the rest of the organisation up. And if you're at the top or in the board, you've got to do it too. So look, I'm just saying that, look, for us, look, it was a no-brainer, because it was already fitting strongly with our purpose and with the way that we wanted to shape as women. Women are screaming out for this. Now, if you're an organisation who wants to attract and hold on to women and those who are thinking deeply about this across, you know, it's not a gendered thing, but, you know, obviously my lens is obviously to look after women. But there's a deep yearning for meaningful work and for meaningful contribution. And certainly the next generation is looking for that, without a doubt. And our next generation of shareholders are asking our public companies to be thinking about what are the bigger picture impacts that we're making. What are we doing as good global citizens of the world? They're not asking for the greatest profitability and dividend. The dividend that they want, and that the young ones want, is a dividend based in sustainability. And I think that is really sitting underneath everything that we're doing.
And I think that recognition that every person and every organization's journey is unique, and it's about building a gradient from exactly where we are. And where we are is, no matter who we are or where we are or what our organization is or where it's currently at, that's the best place to be starting this journey from. It's a matter of curating that gradient, meeting everyone where they are, and looking at where that destination is where that vision is for where we want to end up, because building in this social infrastructure is the only way that we can bring everybody with us and shift cultures and create more inclusive workspaces so that everybody can thrive for people and planet and profit. So Lyn, what's your invitation to anyone listening, like an organization committed to leadership development? What's your invitation to them about BWA?
Well, certainly if you're curious if this has sparked something that you would really like to journey with us along and learn, reach out to me or to Wendy. Get engaged with what we're doing. Everything that we're doing is aligning with this framework and building a community of conscious leadership, of intentional progress, of personal focus, personal awareness, deep awareness work, and understanding of others. It's a community of practice, and it's a great way to explore these concepts, and then not just keep these ideas to yourself, to actually bring them out into the worlds, into the communities, into the businesses in which you're operating. Because that is the ripple effect that we're looking for. It's the voice and the courage that we are calling everyone to have, is come on and learn with us, but be courageous and start making that impact inside your own organizations. You know, this is not about theory. This is not about academia. This is actually an in practice approach. This is human-centered. It absolutely makes sense, and you will love it. So come along, reach out to me and Wendy. If you just even want to chat and look at what you can do inside your organization, we would love to, look at, let's do a discovery. Let's start something small and let's build it out from there.
Thanks, Lyn. Thanks very much. It's been great to have this wonderful romp through the IDGs and BWA. It's been a great journey. It is a journey. It's an unending one. We're all growing and evolving, and our systems and organizations and relationships are growing and evolving every single day. So thank you very much for this deep dive into the subject matter, and I look forward to maybe organising in the future just to check in to see how it's going.
Well, I mean, Wendy, you're walking this pathway with us every day, and without you and your stewardship in Business Women Australia, I wouldn't be speaking like this. I was, I didn't have the framework or the language, and I'm really exploring deeply what else we need to do to really take this to the next level. And we will check in. I think we'll run another podcast maybe in, early 2027 and share with everyone how our journey's going, and maybe even get some of our leader members on with us to discuss sort of how they're finding it. Because even in a conversation I was having with one of our members who's going to do some facilitating of one of our member connects, I was sharing with her, to align what her thinking is with these inner development goals, and think about how she could slow things down a little bit in that experience online in order to get everyone's voices and enable everyone to be seen and heard in it, rather than seeing it as a workshop. See, little things like that are shifting. So these are the examples of what we can share with you and your organisation. If you're thinking, how can we know what we're doing isn't kind of really taking us to where we need to be. So thank you so much, Wendy. Ever so grateful, and feeling, I feel so grateful that, we had that conversation. I think I was at the Philanthropy Australia Congress when you put your hand up to come onto the advisory board, and we just had such a deep conversation that moment. I remember stepping out of a session, and I was like, the back of the hair on my neck was up, because I just knew this was a meeting of souls and a meeting of spirits and minds that are going to make a big difference. And you've just really been such a wonderful addition to our community, and I'm really grateful for your leadership and for you so generously bringing your knowledge to helping shape our culture.
And given that Australia has such a small relationship with the Sustainable Development Goals, and the policy settings now that are really driving the ESG performance and reporting requirements now, you know, the pressure is on to move in more in this direction. And I'm so grateful because BWA yourself was so ready to have the conversation and to be able to help prototype how we might be able to begin this journey in Australia. And I'm just so grateful that, you know, we've been able to go down this path together and evolve and then be able to share it with others. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. It's been fun. So, and it will continue to be. And so if you're listening to this show, please reach out to Wendy Harper. What's the best way to reach you, Wendy?
Email is probably good. Wendy@wendyharper.com will do. Thank you.
Sounds great. And Wendy's also on our directory. So if you want to book some time with us and you want to specifically talk about the ESGs, if I'm easier to find, you know, my Calendarly bookings out there, put in the notes, put in the agenda that you would like Wendy to be on that call as well. And that'll encourage us to make sure that we've got it's a three-way conversation. It's well worth having. Start with conversation. That's the best place to be. And do some research in the background around what these are. It's open source, but don't try and do it on your own. You can just really, I think, get a lot of benefit from hearing how others are doing it. And so learning from what they might be learning might actually save you some heartache along the way. So, thanks a lot, Wendy, for coming on the show. And thanks for interviewing me. I was actually kidding myself, to be honest, I love being the one that asks the questions. And I wasn't sure if I was ready, to be honest. You know, this is the problem with me, is I like to be really clear about what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. And I've just found this to be fun. And I hope that I made some sense.
Yeah, you made great sense, and it's also part of the journey and a beautiful demonstration of what the IDGs is all about in practice, is being willing to be authentic, to go on the ride, to open up to and feel safe to be able to share, knowing that everything that happens along the way is a learning experience, and just helping to support that culture, leading from the front, embodying what it's all about. Lyn, you are amazing.
Oh, well, I think we've got a mutual fan club here. Big hugs. My little heart shape, I still can't do it properly. My kids just laugh when I try and do any of these things. Okay, if you're listening, come and join us. Become a member. Join the movement. I like to say that it's an ecosystem of conscious leaders. We're learning as we go. We'd love you to be a part of the journey. We don't always get it right, but that's also part of the fun. So if it sounds like some organization that you'd like to be a part of, we'd love to have you. And
Absolutely.
Enjoy the show. Enjoy the next show. Like and subscribe.
See you.
You have been listening to the Business Women Australia podcast show. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode and gained some valuable insights to empower you on your journey. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to stay updated in our latest episodes. And if you're not already a member of Business Women Australia, what are you waiting for? Head to our website today and join so that you can connect with a thriving community of inspiring women across Australia. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.